The rain fell softly that evening, washing the little town of Silver Creek in shades of gray. The cemetery on the hill was nearly empty, its silence broken only by the low rumble of distant thunder and the sound of faint cries. No one who had gathered for the funeral lingered. The townspeople had slipped away quietly, pulling their coats tighter, eager to escape the weight of sorrow that hung in the air. A fresh mound of earth stood at the center, a humble gravestone at its head, and just beside it lay two newborn children. Their tiny bodies quivered, their voices thin and broken. Against the vast silence. At that moment, it felt as though the world itself had turned away. Life had begun for them in the coldest of places, at the very edge of loss. Their mother, Eliza Moore, had been a young nurse who gave her last breath in bringing them into the world. The service that followed had been quick, muted, and scattered. With whispers, few spoke kindly of her. Many judged her for being alone, abandoned by the man who had once promised her love but disappeared long before. When the coffin was lowered, no one stepped forward to comfort the children left behind. Instead, one by one, they slipped into the shadows of the storm. As though the weight of responsibility was too heavy to bear, the infants cried on, their tiny fists trembling, their faces pale in the cool air. Their cries did not reach sympathetic ears. They were too fragile, too small to endure much longer. Yet in that hollow hour, a figure appeared, heavy boots pressed into the wet earth, halting at the edge of the grave. Jack Turner, a soldier returned from years of service, stood still for a long moment, listening. He had come to visit another grave, one that belonged to his wife and the child he had lost before ever meeting them. Grief had been his only companion for years. Yet here, standing in the rain, he found himself drawn to the sound of life, faint, struggling, and pleading for a chance. Jack knelt, his weathered hands brushing away the damp grass. The sight of the two infants pierced through him like no battlefield ever had. He saw not just helpless children, but a mirror of his own emptiness, of lives cut short before they had begun. The decision that formed within him was not measured or planned. It rose like a tide, undeniable and overwhelming. He gathered the children carefully, wrapping them in his own coat to shield them from the chill. Their cries softened against his chest as though they had found a heartbeat to steady them. Behind him, a voice cut through the rain. Someone lingered, one of the last mourners too curious to leave without a glance. Their mother is gone, the man muttered. Their father disappeared long ago. Best not to get involved, Jack. No one in this town will help. The words were meant as caution, yet they carried no weight against the resolve building inside Jack. He rose slowly, the children secure in his arms, and turned toward the gates. He did not answer, for he knew there was nothing to explain. As he carried them through the streets, people peered from behind curtains. Some shook their heads, whispering of his recklessness, of the burden he was taking on. But Jack walked with steady steps, not looking left or right. In his heart, he knew the truth. Sometimes the greatest battles are not fought with weapons, but with compassion. Sometimes courage is not standing against an enemy, but standing for the helpless when no one else will. The small cabin he called home sat on the edge of Silver Creek, quiet and surrounded by tall pines. It was not much, but it was warm, and it was safe inside. He lit a fire, the soft glow pushing away the dampness of the storm. He laid the children upon blankets, watching as their breaths steadied in the newfound warmth. Their tiny fingers curled instinctively round his own, and in that moment Jack felt something awaken in him, a promise unspoken but deeply rooted. He did not know what the future would demand. He did not know how he would manage the long nights, the questions, the judgment of neighbors who saw only scandal where he saw salvation. Yet he knew with absolute certainty that leaving those children behind was never an option. In their fragile cries, he had found a reason to rise again from his own shadows. As the fire flickered, Jack whispered gently, though they could not yet understand, "You're not alone, not anymore." Outside, the storm began to ease, the clouds drifting apart to reveal a faint sliver of moonlight. The town slept, unaware that a choice had just been made that would ripple across decades, shaping lives in ways no one could yet imagine. For within Jack's arms rested not only two children in need, but also a secret. one buried deep within the roots of Silver Creek, waiting for the day it would come to light. And though Jack could not yet see that far ahead, he felt its weight in the quiet of that night. A secret carried in silence has a way of finding its moment, and when that day arrived, the entire town would remember this night, the night a soldier's decision rewrote to destinies and set the stage for a truth that would not remain hidden forever. The first light of dawn spilled over Silver Creek, soft and golden, touching the quiet cabin at the edge of the forest. Inside, the children stirred in their blankets, blinking sleep from their eyes. Jack, sitting nearby, had not slept all night, listening to their gentle breathing, feeling a surge of responsibility and love unlike anything he had known. The rain had passed, leaving a delicate mist that clung to the trees, and the air smelled faintly of pine and earth. He watched their small faces, so new and vulnerable, and wondered how life could have abandoned them in such a way, only to place them in his care. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, yet every moment with the children revealed new lessons about courage, patience, and resilience. Jack's hands, once hardened by years of service, now softened as he learned the rhythms of feeding, bathing, and soothing to lives that depended entirely on him. The town continued its quiet judgment from afar, whispers floating like shadows on the wind, but Jack ignored them. In the laughter and cries of the children, he found purpose greater than any medal he had earned or battle he had survived. Mara, the older by only minutes, had a spirit that could not be contained. Even as an infant, she reached for the world, with bold, tiny hands, curious about every sound, every movement, every flicker of light. Her brother, Liam, was gentler, his wide eyes watching, absorbing, questioning. They complemented each other perfectly, like two halves of a single soul. Jack marveled at the way they communicated without words, how one's whim could draw the other into a smile or a tear. He began to understand that the bond between them was profound, unbroken by tragedy or loss, and that love, even when born in grief, could blossom fiercely. Life outside the cabin remained unchanged. The town carried on with its routines, unaware of the quiet miracle unfolding just beyond the edge of the forest. Jack's neighbors glanced at the smoke curling from the chimney, at the lights flickering through the windows, and often wondered what kind of man would choose such solitude. No one saw the tender moments, the midnight lullabies, the whispered promises of safety and hope. No one heard the laughter that echoed faintly through the trees, announcing that life had found its way back into two little hearts that had almost been lost. By the time the children were old enough to walk, Jack had transformed his home into a world of wonder. He built swings from old rope and wood, set up small gardens for the children to explore, and spent hours teaching them about the forest and its creatures. Every lesson was infused with love, every story a reminder that the world could be kind if one chose courage over fear. Yet, even as happiness filled the cabin, shadows lingered in the corners. The past, though silent, was never fully gone. Jack knew that the secret surrounding their mother, the truth of the circumstances that had led to their abandonment, would one day rise again. Until then, he guarded it, a delicate truth cradled alongside the children he loved more than his own life. One afternoon, as golden light filtered through the windows, Mara clutched a small wooden toy Jack had carved, her eyes wide with wonder. "Tell me again about the stars, Papa," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam tugged at Jack's sleeve, eager to hear the same story, his curiosity mirroring his sister's. And so Jack told them of constellations and comets, of distant worlds and the endless possibilities they held. But as he spoke, he felt a tug in his chest, a quiet reminder that stories, like lives, often had chapters that could not be anticipated. Some truths waited patiently, and others demanded to be faced. The children grew quickly, their personalities emerging with clarity. Mara's fierce determination was tempered by an innate kindness, while Liam's thoughtfulness revealed a wisdom beyond his years. Jack watched with pride, realizing that despite the world's indifference, these two had thrived. Their laughter became the heartbeat of the cabin, their questions a reminder that life, when nurtured with love, could flourish even in the most unlikely places. And yet, beneath the surface, the unanswered questions of their past lingered. Who were they? Why had life abandoned them so cruelly, only to place them in the arms of a stranger? Jack could not answer these questions fully, but he promised himself that one day they would know. As the years passed, Silver Creek began to notice subtle changes. The once reclusive soldier was now a quiet presence in town, helping neighbors in need, offering guidance, and carrying out acts of kindness that spoke louder than words. Rumors softened into admiration, and whispers turned into respect. But Jack never allowed the children to step fully into the town's gaze. Their world remained their sanctuary, a place where love and safety outweighed gossip and judgment. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of violet and gold, the children wandered near the edge of the forest. Jack followed closely, his hand resting on Liam's shoulder. Mara paused, her gaze fixed on a small clearing where wildflowers swayed gently in the breeze. "Papa," she asked, her voice tentative, "why don't we know about Mama?" The question hung in the air, delicate and heavy, and for a moment Jack felt the weight of the secret he had carried for so long. He knelt beside them, taking both their hands in his. "Because, my loves," he said gently, "some stories take time to be told, and when the right moment comes, you will know everything. I promise you that." The children nodded, trusting his words, unaware that the moment they had unknowingly anticipated was slowly approaching. Life continued its quiet rhythm, playful days, peaceful nights, lessons in the forest, and evenings by the fire. But an invisible thread connected the present to a past waiting to reveal itself. Jack knew the truth would not stay hidden forever. One day, the secret of their mother, the reason they had been left alone in the rain, would emerge. And when it did, it would not only change their understanding of themselves, but also the hearts of everyone in Silver Creek. For now, the cabin remained a sanctuary of love and hope, the children's laughter a testament to the power of compassion. And as Jack watched Mara and Liam chase each other through the twilight, he felt a deep certainty. Life had tested them, but it had also rewarded them. Courage, kindness, and unwavering love had brought them here, and nothing, no secret, no hardship, no passing of time could erase the bond they shared. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying a promise that the future held more than the past could ever take away. And somewhere, beneath layers of silence and years of waiting, the secret of their beginning stirred, ready to rise when the time was right. The first day of school arrived with a crispness in the air that made Mara and Liam's cheeks flush with excitement and nervous anticipation. Jack walked them to the old brick building at the center of Silver Creek, their tiny hands clasped tightly in his. The streets were quiet, save for the distant chatter of neighbors, who had grown accustomed to seeing Jack and the children together. Though the town had softened its judgment over the years, whispers never fully disappeared. Jack ignored them, focusing instead on the brave little faces before him, knowing that today marked another step toward the world beyond their cabin, another step toward understanding who they were. Inside the school, Mara and Liam felt the stirrings of curiosity and uncertainty that come with every new beginning. Mara's eyes darted around the classroom, taking in the colorful posters, the towering shelves of books, and the children laughing and playing. Liam clung a little closer to Jack, his gaze steady but cautious. Both of them had grown in the safety of the forest, where the rhythm of life was predictable and the world outside had always felt distant. Now, the larger world beckoned, full of noise, questions, and possibilities. Jack knelt to their level, brushing a strand of hair from Mara's face. "Remember," he said softly, "courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about taking the next step even when you are. You have everything you need inside you, and I'll always be with you no matter what." Mara's eyes shone with determination, and Liam nodded, trusting Jack's words as he always did. With a deep breath, they stepped into the classroom, leaving Jack by the doorway, watching, ready to protect and guide if needed. The first days were filled with small victories and challenges. Mara's boldness quickly earned her friends, while Liam's quiet intelligence impressed teachers. Yet despite their outward confidence, both children sensed that they carried a question that had no answer. Their mother's absence was a shadow that occasionally brushed against their laughter, a gap they could feel but not yet understand. Jack never spoke of it in detail, offering instead gentle reassurances. Yet the children's curiosity grew with every passing day. One afternoon, while exploring the edges of the schoolyard, Mara stumbled upon a small, forgotten letter tucked behind a loose brick in the wall. The paper was yellowed and delicate, and though she did not fully understand it, the words seemed to pulse with an importance she could not yet grasp. Liam leaned over her shoulder, eyes wide. "Do you think it's from Mom?" he whispered. Mara shook her head, uncertain, but a spark ignited within them both, a sense that the past they could not see was beginning to reach toward them. Jack noticed the change in their demeanor that evening as they returned to the cabin. Mara was unusually quiet, holding the letter close to her chest. Liam's thoughtful gaze lingered on the horizon, as if he were trying to see something far beyond the trees. Jack approached, a calm presence amidst the curiosity swirling in the children's minds. "I see you found something," he said softly. Mara hesitated, then handed him the paper. As Jack read the words, carefully chosen but incomplete, he felt a mixture of concern and resolve. He knew the questions would grow, that the truth would one day demand to be faced. Yet he also knew that for now, the children needed guidance, not fear. That night, as the fire crackled and shadows danced along the walls of the cabin, Jack told stories not of the past, but of courage, kindness, and resilience. He spoke of distant lands and quiet victories, of the power found in hope and love. The children listened, wide-eyed, absorbing every word as though it were a map to a world they had yet to fully know. And though the questions lingered, they felt comfort in Jack's unwavering presence. He had always been their anchor, steady, in storms and calm in uncertainty, and tonight was no different. In the following weeks, small signs appeared that life had more lessons to offer than any cabin or forest could contain. Mara, curious and fearless, often asked questions about her mother, about the town, about why their lives had begun in such an unusual way. Liam, introspective and careful, noticed the subtle reactions of people in town, the way shopkeepers glanced at them with recognition or hesitation, the way strangers whispered behind their hands. Jack answered as best he could, with honesty tempered by love. Yet he could not reveal the full story. Not yet. One rainy evening, as lightning flickered across the sky, Mara and Liam huddled near the fire, unable to sleep. "Papa," Mara asked, her voice trembling slightly, "why did Mom leave us? Did she want us to be with you?" Jack felt a lump form in his throat, the weight of his promise pressing down on him. He knelt beside them, holding their small hands in his. "Your mother loved you more than anything," he said gently. "Sometimes life doesn't let us stay together in the way we wish, but she left you in the safest place she could, even if you didn't know it at first. You are loved. You always have been, and you always will be." As the storm raged outside, the children's fears were soothed by his words, but a subtle curiosity took root, a quiet determination to uncover the truth about their beginnings. Jack recognized the spark. It was the same one he had carried within him, the same one that had driven him to take them from the grave so many years ago. The path ahead would not be simple. Questions would grow, challenges would arise, and the hidden truths of Silver Creek would begin to emerge. Yet for now, the cabin remained a sanctuary, a place where courage was nurtured and love was the strongest force in the room. And as Jack watched Mara and Liam drift into sleep, he felt a surge of hope. The children were resilient, stronger than even he had realized. They would face the world and its mysteries with courage and grace, guided by the lessons of compassion, patience, and unshakable love he had instilled in them. Outside, the wind carried whispers of change, of secrets long buried beginning to stir. Somewhere in Silver Creek, the past waited patiently, ready to reveal itself when the time was right. And when it did, the children would discover not only the story of their mother, but also the depth of the courage and love that had saved them from the shadows of despair. The summers in Silver Creek stretched long and golden, but for Mara and Liam, time seemed to pass both swiftly and painfully slow. They were no longer children entirely. The world outside the cabin had begun to shape them in ways that neither Jack nor the forest could fully control. School had become a stage of triumphs and frustrations, friendships and rivalries, while the quiet whispers of the town occasionally drifted back into their lives, subtle yet unmistakable. Even the strongest hearts could not remain untouched forever, and Mara and Liam were beginning to understand that life held questions that demanded answers they did not yet possess. Jack had always believed that love and guidance could shield them from the harsher realities of the world. But adolescence carried its own challenges, questions of identity, belonging, and understanding where they came from. Mara, fierce and determined, began to notice the curious glances of classmates, the subtle ways they asked questions she could not answer. Liam, reflective and careful, sensed the unspoken stories in townspeople's eyes, and a quiet yearning stirred within him to know the truths that had been hidden for so long. The cabin, once a sanctuary, now seemed like a fragile bubble around a life that was rapidly expanding into a world that refused to remain quiet. One autumn afternoon, Mara and Liam discovered something that would change the rhythm of their lives. While exploring the attic of their cabin, a place filled with old trunks, forgotten letters, and relics of Jack's past, they found a small, locked chest. It was heavy, carved with intricate patterns, and though they tried to lift it together, its weight told them that this chest was meant for discovery at the right time. Curiosity burned in their hearts. The air felt charged, as though the chest had been waiting for this moment, for their hands to uncover what had been hidden so carefully for decades. Jack noticed their fascination immediately. He came to the attic quietly, his eyes resting on the chest with a mixture of pride and apprehension. "Some things," he said softly, "are not ready to be opened yet. But one day when you are ready, you will understand why they were kept safe for you." Mara's eyes flashed with determination, Liam's with quiet insistence. They knew, instinctively, that the chest contained something important, something that would explain pieces of their lives that had always felt incomplete. Jack looked at them, recognizing the same spark of courage that had carried them from the first day. They were entrusted to him. He nodded slightly, a silent promise that when the time came, the truth would be theirs to hold. Life outside the cabin continued to evolve. Mara excelled in her studies, her determination a beacon to those around her. Liam, thoughtful and introspective, found solace in writing and sketching, his imagination forming worlds that stretched far beyond the boundaries of Silver Creek. And yet, beneath their successes, subtle challenges emerged. A classmate once whispered a question about their parents. Another asked why they seemed different from others. And though Jack had always prepared them to face curiosity with grace, each moment reminded them that the world carried truths that could not always be shielded. One evening, Mara approached Jack quietly while he was repairing the fence along the garden. "Papa," she said, her voice steady but tinged with worry, "why do we feel like part of our story is missing?" Jack paused, the hammer in his hand stilling midair. He knelt beside her, taking her hands in his, and looked into eyes that reflected both determination and vulnerability. "Sometimes," he said gently, "life gives us pieces of ourselves in stages. There are truths that take time to be understood. The world may not always reveal them right away, but when it does, you will be strong enough to face them." As autumn deepened, the chest in the attic seemed to call to them more insistently. They found themselves drawn there in moments of solitude, imagining the letters, photographs, or keepsakes it might hold. And while they respected Jack's guidance, an invisible tension had begun to build, the unspoken promise of revelation, pressing gently but persistently against the walls of their world. Jack, sensing the inevitability, began preparing them. In small, subtle ways, he shared stories of courage and resilience, of people who faced unknowns with grace, of the power of patience and hope. Each story, while seemingly unrelated, planted seeds that would help them navigate the coming truths. The turning point came one late afternoon when a letter arrived addressed to the children, written in an unfamiliar hand. The envelope bore a date decades old, yet the ink remained legible, the paper carefully preserved. Mara and Liam stared at it in awe, and for the first time, a tangible thread connected them to the past they had always felt but never seen. Jack watched silently, knowing this moment was inevitable. He had hoped to shield them until the time was right, but life had a way of bringing truth forward in its own manner. The letter was more than paper. It was a bridge between the children and the story of their mother. A hint that the secret Jack had carried all these years was beginning to emerge. That night, as the wind whispered through the trees and the firelight danced across the cabin walls, Jack gathered Mara and Liam. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "you will begin to understand more of where you come from. The past is a part of you, and soon you will see the courage it took to protect you, and the love that has always surrounded you." The children listened, hearts pounding with anticipation, their minds racing with questions that had been building. For years, the first hints of the secret had arrived, fragile yet undeniable. The chest, the letter, and the subtle glances of the townspeople all converged into a moment of revelation. Waiting to unfold, Jack knew that the path ahead would challenge them, test their resilience, and force them to confront emotions they had never faced. Yet he also knew that they were ready, stronger than any obstacle, braver than any fear, and bound together by a love that had been nurtured in the quietest, most extraordinary ways. As the night deepened and the stars appeared above Silver Creek, Mara and Liam drifted into sleep with hearts full of questions and a spark of anticipation. Outside, the wind stirred gently through the forest, carrying a promise that the coming days would not only reveal the truths of their past, but also illuminate the strength within them, the strength that had carried them from despair to hope, from uncertainty to courage. And somewhere in the shadows of time, the secret that had been hidden for so long began to stir, ready to change everything they had ever known. The day the letter arrived, the world seemed to hold its breath. Mara and Liam stood in the cabin, the envelope trembling slightly in Mara's hands. The paper was old, fragile, and yet it carried a weight far greater than either of them could yet comprehend. Jack watched silently from across the room, his heart heavy but steady. He had known this day would come, though the timing was beyond his control. He had spent years preparing them, teaching them resilience, courage, and the importance of love, knowing that one day the truth would demand to be faced. That day was now. Mara broke the seal first, her fingers brushing against the worn edges of the paper. Liam hovered close, his eyes wide with anticipation, the faintest tremor of fear running through him as Mara unfolded the letter. Words written in a careful, familiar hand began to form a bridge between the past and the present. The letter spoke of a mother who had loved her children fiercely, who had faced circumstances beyond her control, and who had trusted the only person she believed could give them a future. Jack. The words revealed the story of sacrifice, courage, and deep love that had remained hidden for decades. Tears welled in Mara's eyes as she read, and Liam's hand found hers instinctively. "She knew we would be safe with you," Mara whispered, her voice shaking but filled with awe. Jack approached, kneeling beside them. His own voice was quiet, deliberate, filled with the gravity of the moment. "Yes," he said, "she made the hardest choice a mother can make, knowing it was the only way to protect you. Everything I've done since that day has been for you, your safety, your happiness, and your future." The letter also revealed the circumstances of their mother's final days, the struggles she faced, the choices forced upon her, and the love she carried even in her last moments. It spoke of a world that had seemed indifferent, yet her determination to protect her children had outshone the shadows of despair. Mara and Liam felt a mix of grief and gratitude, the weight of the years they had lived in partial ignorance pressing against their hearts. Yet beneath it all, a sense of wonder emerged. They had been loved fiercely from the very beginning, even when they could not understand it. Jack guided them through the emotions that surged, helping them navigate the waves of grief, relief, and admiration. "Love," he said gently, "is not always easy to see, and sometimes it asks for sacrifices we may never understand at first. But it is the strongest force in the world, and it has always surrounded you, even in ways you could not feel until now." Mara and Liam listened, absorbing every word, their hearts beginning to heal and expand with a newfound understanding of the depth of their mother's love and Jack's unwavering devotion. As the day unfolded, the children began to piece together memories that had always seemed ordinary, only to realize that they had been shaped by love and protection from the very beginning. The toys Jack had carved, the lessons in the forest, the bedtime stories, they were all threads woven into a tapestry of care that had shielded them from despair. The revelation transformed their perspective, turning ordinary moments into profound reminders of how much they had been cherished. But the secret did more than explain the past. It awakened a determination within them. Mara, whose spirit had always sought action and justice, began to understand that life was about embracing challenges with courage and using the strength they had inherited. Liam, contemplative and thoughtful, recognized that knowledge and understanding were tools they could carry forward to shape their own paths and to honor the sacrifices that had been made for them. Together, they felt a bond not only with Jack and their mother, but with the world itself, a world that, though flawed, could be met with compassion and courage. The revelation also rippled beyond the walls of the cabin. Jack realized that the town, too, would one day need to see the truth, to understand the acts of love and courage that had unfolded quietly for decades. He began preparing Mara and Liam for that eventuality, emphasizing that courage was not only about facing personal challenges, but also about standing for the truth, even when it was uncomfortable or long delayed. The children, inspired by the knowledge of their mother's sacrifice and Jack's unwavering devotion, began to internalize the lessons they had been taught their entire lives. As twilight fell over Silver Creek, Mara and Liam sat together by the fire, the letter carefully preserved between them. Jack watched silently, a quiet smile on his face, knowing that this moment marked not only a revelation, but a transformation. The children, who had once been uncertain and curious, were now emboldened, filled with purpose and understanding. They had seen the power of love and sacrifice, and they knew that the strength of the past could guide them through the challenges of the future. The cabin felt warmer that night, not only from the fire, but from the shared realization that life had a rhythm of protection, guidance, and revelation. The secret that had lain dormant for decades had emerged at the right time, and in doing so, it had strengthened the bond between father and children, between past and present, and between hope and courage. Outside, the wind stirred the trees gently, carrying whispers of resilience, growth, and the promise that the next chapters of life would be met not with fear, but with the knowledge that love, steadfast, patient, and profound, could illuminate even the darkest paths. In the quiet of that night, Jack, Mara, and Liam understood something essential. The past had shaped them, but it would not define them. They were free to carry the lessons, the love, and the courage forward into the world that awaited them beyond the cabin, ready to meet it with hearts unafraid, spirits unbroken, and the unshakable knowledge that even in the face of uncertainty, love had always been their guide. The morning sun spilled golden light across the cabin, warming the faces of Mara and Liam as they stepped outside, their hands brushing against each other in quiet solidarity. Today felt different, charged with a sense of purpose and clarity that had been absent for so long. The letter from their mother had revealed the past, showing them the depth of love that had been woven into every choice, every sacrifice, every quiet act of care. Yet now, with understanding in their hearts, it was time to look forward, to embrace life with the courage, kindness, and resilience that had been instilled in them since the very first day Jack had taken them from the grave of uncertainty. Jack walked alongside them, steady as ever, his own heart full of both pride and quiet relief. He had carried the secret for decades, knowing that the moment of revelation would come. And now that it had, he could see the transformation in the children he loved as fiercely as life itself. Mara's eyes, bright with determination, scanned the horizon as though she could already see the challenges ahead, ready to face them with unwavering courage. Liam, thoughtful and resolute, walked with a sense of purpose, his mind already turning over ideas, plans, and possibilities. Together, they moved forward, not as children seeking answers, but as young adults prepared to shape their own story. Their first steps into the town that morning were tentative yet charged with quiet strength. Silver Creek, which had watched them grow in silence for so many years, now bore witness to a family united by love and resilience. Neighbors paused, some in surprise, some in recognition, as Mara and Liam approached the square with Jack at their side. The town, long accustomed to whispers and distance, could not ignore the undeniable presence of courage, kindness, and integrity embodied in the family standing before them. Mara spoke first, her voice steady, carrying across the square. "We know our past now," she said, her eyes meeting those of the townspeople. "We know the sacrifices made for us, and we know the love that has guided us every step. We are here to show that even when life seems uncertain, love and courage can shape our world," Liam added softly but firmly. "We have been given a gift, the chance to live fully, to face challenges, and to honor those who came before us. We hope you will see that strength and that hope and join us in celebrating it." Jack watched as the town's eyes softened. Faces that had once been wary or judgmental now reflected recognition and, in many cases, admiration. The story of the mother, the soldier, and the children once hidden and shrouded in uncertainty had emerged not as a tale of tragedy, but as a testament to love, resilience, and unwavering devotion. The town began to understand that courage did not always roar in the open. Sometimes it whispered quietly in acts of care, in patience, in the commitment to nurture life against the odds. As days passed, Mara and Liam embraced their roles not only as children of courage, but as young leaders in their own right. They engaged with the town, offering help where it was needed, supporting neighbors, and sharing the lessons they had learned about love, resilience, and the power of hope. Jack, once a solitary figure, now walked among friends and allies, proud not only of the children he had raised, but of the way the community had begun to heal. Recognizing the extraordinary acts of ordinary people, evenings in the cabin remained sacred. By the fire, Mara and Liam would reflect on their journey, the letter from their mother resting nearby, a symbol of the love that had guided them through every uncertainty. Jack would share stories of courage, of moments when hope had carried him through darkness, reinforcing the lessons they had learned, that life would always present challenges, but with love, integrity, and determination, no obstacle was insurmountable. One autumn night, as the wind whispered through the pines and the stars painted silver trails across the sky, Mara and Liam sat side by side, gazing at the horizon. "It feels like we've come full circle," Mara said softly, her voice reflecting both gratitude and wonder. Liam nodded, adding, "We've learned so much. About love, about sacrifice, and about courage, and we've seen that life can be extraordinary when faced with hope." Jack placed a hand on each of their shoulders, his voice quiet but filled with certainty. "You have both grown into remarkable individuals. Never forget that the strength within you has always been there. It was nurtured in your first days, protected in the storms, and now shines brightly for all to see." The town of Silver Creek began to celebrate their story, not as one of sorrow, but as a tale of inspiration. Parents told it to their children, teachers shared it in classrooms, and neighbors spoke of it in hushed, reverent tones. It became a story of hope, a reminder that even in moments of despair, courage and love could transform lives. Mara and Liam, once fragile and uncertain, became symbols of what could be achieved when hearts were guided by devotion and resilience. In the quiet of the cabin, Jack looked at the children he had raised, no longer as infants trembling in the cold, but as strong, compassionate, and courageous young adults ready to face the world. The secret that had once seemed heavy and fragile had transformed into a source of strength, binding them together and illuminating their path forward. Outside, the wind carried whispers of change, of new beginnings, and of endless possibilities. And as the stars gleamed above Silver Creek, Mara and Liam understood a truth deeper than words. Life was never simply about the hardships faced, but about the courage, love, and hope that carried them through. With Jack beside them, their mother's love guiding them, and the lessons of resilience etched into their hearts, they were ready to embrace the future, inspire the world, and live a life that honored the sacrifices of the past while shaping a story of triumph, compassion, and unshakable courage.